We are on Daf Dalit Amid Aleph at the two dots at Gufa. So one of the questions we saw the last time we learned was if a person on Shabbat placed bread onto the tanur, and can he take it off before it is baked, right? Because the instant of baking is when it gets baked. So can he take it off? But however, there was another issue. The Chachamim said that the skill and knowledge set of how to remove bread from the wall of an oven is considered somewhat of a special chachma. It's the uvda dechol. It's a special work of the week, and the chachamim asked her to do it. So it's a rabbinical no. And if you leave it in there, it then is going to become baked, and that will become a possible deoraita biblical prohibition. So that was the question the boy Rabbi Barabaya had. The gufa. Boy Rabbi Barabaya hit big pot in the tanur. If a person put bread to the inside wall of the oven, did they allow him to take it off because before he has a chiyuv chatat, which is basically, is he allowed to take it off before it's baked or not? Right? Can he be over the derabanan? So he wouldn't be chayiv the deraita. So now we want to know the particulars of this case, right? Because this case was, it said, Kodem she'avo lidei chiyuv chatat. Before it comes to a chiyuv to bring a karban chatat. Now, when do you bring a karban chatat for a Shabbat issue? Only when it is shogeg, when it's inadvertent, right? He forgot it was Shabbat, or he forgot that it was also to bake on Shabbat, and then he did something, right? So then that's when you bring a shogeg. That's when you bring a chatat. That's a shogeg. That's when you bring a chatat. So let's take a look at the Gemara's question. Where is this case? If you say it was inadvertent, so that means he didn't realize. So what's the question? Does he have permission to remove it, or he doesn't have permission to remove it? It's a shaygig. He doesn't remember that he even put it. So lama'an hitiru. Who did they matter it for? It must be that he put it in b'shoigeg, and then he remembered. But if that's the case, would he really be chayiv a chatat v'hatanan? What we learned in a Mishnah later on in Masechet Shabbat. Kol chayiv a chatot. The only time you're chayiv a chatat, einan chayivin ad shtiyet chilatan shkaga v'sofan shkaga. It has to be, the entire situation has to be bishogeg from the beginning until its end, and everything in the middle has to be done bishogeg in order to be hayav hatat. So if this guy put it in bishogeg and then he remembered halfway through, he's not going to be hayav hatat. You cannot be hayav hatat. You remembered in between. The only time you're hayav hatat if it's in middle, if you don't remember at all in the whole time, then you bring a hatat. And it cannot be the case that you didn't remember the whole time, because then who are they allowing to take it off? It says hitiru loy. Do they allow him to take it off or not? The case must be b'mezid, where he did it b'mezid, meaning he placed the dough on purpose. He knew it was Shabbat, he knew it was Asur, and he still placed it. That was the case, then it should have said, and it should have said in the Braita, before he would come to an Isser Sikila, right? Because if a person did Malacha on Shabbos, and he was warned and everything, he gets Sikila, he gets stony. So that's what it should have said if he did a B'mezid. You're right. It means B'shoigeg. Uluman hitiru. And what does it mean that they matter him to take it off? It says hitiru loy or loy hitiru, right? They allow him to take it off or not. Not talking about that guy, because if he remembered, then it's no longer chayiv and chatat. And if he doesn't remember, then they can't permit him. And he doesn't remember. So what's the case? Lamanu tiru la acherim. The question was, can someone else who saw this, can someone else take it off? Right? Maskav Rav Sheshet said, I have a question. Go make a sin so that your fellow may gain. Do we ever say that? Do we say, go make an Avera so this way your fellow will be okay? Right? Do we say, oh, you go take off the bread and be over a Isser Chachamim in order to go save your friend? We don't do that. Rav Shesha says this is not something that is done. Now, Tosfot points out that there are actually a couple of places in Shas where we do say that. One example is in Maseches Eruvin on Daf Lamed Beis. The Gemara there says that a chaver, a religious Jew, is selling tevel, not on tithe produce, to a Amoritz, right? Let's say he sold it to him, and now he knows Amoritz may not give meiser, and it's going to eat tevel. So Talmid Chacham is allowed to go ahead and give meiser on that food from something else that's not nearby, which is an Issa D'Rabbanan, right? According to the Rises, it works, but the Rabbanan said not to do that. So the Gemara says he could do that. The Gemara says, why is he allowed to do that? It's Issa Chachamim. So the Gemara says it's better for him to do a small sin than allow the other one to do a big sin, right? Because it's a chachamim not to tithe from the produce that's in front of you. But the eating tevel, that's an Isser D'Oraisa. So rather do an Isser Kal rather than an Isser Chomer. So Taisus wants to know, there's other cases as well, Taisus wants to know, so what do you mean we don't say that? We do say that. There are places in Shas that we say that. So Taisus gives an answer as follows. The only time we say that, b'makom shachet nigram machmasoi. Roy loy la'avar isur kal k'dei shelo yichshal chaver machmasoi be'isur chomer. V'chein b'mitzvah rabba or b'mitzvah shadabim. Says it depends. If the aver is happening through me, and I don't want him to have that avera through me, then I can do an Isser Kal to prevent him doing an avera through me. Right? That's the case in Erevin. The case in Erevin is I'm selling him the tevel. If I don't take off produce, he's going to eat tevel, which he's going to do an Isser Deraisa based on me. Right? So therefore, you're allowed to go and do an Isser Kal in order to prevent an Isser Chomer. But in this case, you don't have that. That just makes the point the same that by a mitzvah rabba, by a great mitzvah, or by mitzvah rabbim, then perhaps also one would be allowed to do an Isser Kal. The Ramban brings interesting also. He says, only in this place, ain't Amrim Loy Lichtoi. Really, everywhere else you say, make a little sin to prevent someone from doing a bigger sin. But here not. Why? Kivan Sha'afim Lo Yerda. If he doesn't take off the bread, in the case of Shkagam, Yitkaper Chavero Bechatat. Vein Harida El Liftoro Mikarbon. Says the Ramban, if I left it there, right, and I'm the other guy, and I see it, and I leave it there, the worst that happens, he has to bring a carbon, and the carbon brings him kapara. So I'm only saving him from an animal. I'm not saving him from the actual avera, because he's no avera here. It's chayav chatat. He'll have kapara from it. That's the Ramban. Fine. So says the Gemara, hey, Ravashi, Loilam, the case really is amazing. When the guy puts on the bread to the sidewall of the oven on purpose. Loilam, amazing. Behema, Kardim Shiavo, Lidei Isser Sekila. And you have to change the Braita to say that he's going to take it off before an Isser Sekila. And that's the question. Rachav, Rei Rava Matle, Loi, Behedra. Rachav, the son of Rava, taught this version of Rabibi statement as a halacha. Amar Rabibi Baravaya. Hidveg Pat Batanur. Hetiru Lo Lirdota. Kodem Shiavo Lidei Isur Sekila. Person put bread onto the tanur. Hetiru Lo Lirdota. They allowed him to take it down. Kodem Shiavo Lidei Isur Sekila. Before it gets to an Isur Sekila, a prohibition that can lead to skila. Now, Toso says that even if it baked, but the guy no longer wanted it. Someone told him, he put it on purpose and everything. Someone told us, if you're doing this, you're going to get skila. He says, oh man, you know what? You're right. I know what I was doing, but now I feel bad. I don't want it anymore. So it just says, even if it baked, and he didn't take it down, he's not going to be stoned. Why? Because he no longer wanted to do it. However, there are other authorities that argue since the actual placing the dough in the oven was done deliberately, remember Mezid, he knew it was Shabbat, he knew it was Asur. The fact the person was prevented from undoing the effects should not release him from the death penalty. So there are different opinions over here regarding that. La halacha. What is the case? What is the halacha? So in the Alima the Hilchasa, here in the back of the Masif Gemara, he says as follows. I'll read it to you over here. Ve'im natan pat v'tanur b'Shabbat afilu b'mezid. If he put it into the oven on Shabbat, even on purpose. Mutter loyler dice kodim she'afek kadei she'yol yavo l'idei iser skila. He's allowed to take it down before it gets to an iser skila. V'chol shekain kishenatino b'shogeg shemutar kadei she'lo yavo l'idei iser chatas. And so too, if he put it in b'shogeg, he himself is allowed to take it out. That's a key word here. That he himself. Only the guy who put it in is the guy who's allowed to take it out. Okay? I'm going to read this part. Ben kishahedveg b'mezed, ben kishahedveg b'shagig. V'afil mishahedveg es hapas. Einenu po she'eduhu she'einu armim le'ladam asa chet kal kedei shelo yivo chaverecha l'idei itzer chamer. Kiven shechaveru pasha v'ma shehidveg. וגם אם הדליק בשוגג נקרא פשע שיהיה להיזהר שלא יגיע לידי כאן. Okay, so that's a very important piece of that. Only that guy who put it in has the permission to take it out. We don't tell somebody else to take it out. Okay, fine. Now we're going to go in to the next piece of Gemara, which is a little bit long, but that is the Shafi of Italia, back and forth about trying to figure out one of the ideas that are in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah said, just to remind us, that if the poor person took something from the Reshut Rabim and he put his hand inside the Reshut Yachid of the Balabayit's house, and he put it down into the Balabayit's hand, at that point, he did the Akira and the Hanocha, lifting it up in the Reshut Rabim and putting it into the hand of the Balabayit, he did the Hanocha. And the same way, the Ani removed it from the hand of the Balabayit and brought it out. He also did the Akira and the Hanocha. Same thing with the Balabayit. If he put his hand from the inside, he took something out from his house, picked it up and put it out to the outside. He did the Akira of Hanocha of Hotzah. And if he stuck his hand into the outside and brought it inside, he did the Akira of Hanacha of Hachnasa. So what you see here is that if you take it from the hand or place it into the hand of another person, it is considered Akira and Hanacha. I pick it up from his hand, I did the Akira. If I place it into his hand, I did the Hanacha. The Gemara's question on this is, there is a premise that it has to be on a surface of 4 by 4 tvachim in order to be considered resting or to leave its state of rest. Pashat ha'ani et yadoy. Amay chayiv, says the Gemara. V'ha be'inan akira v'anacha gabe makom arba al arba. You need a 4 by 4. 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim place in order for something to rest, in order for it to be considered akira or hanacha. V'leika, and here it is missing. He doesn't have it. So why is he mechayev? So first of all, where do we know that there has to be an area of 4 by 4? So the Ramban wants to say it's the Masaira. All the ones there's Ramazim and Sugim. Whatever Tosafot goes with a logic. Tosafot says that if something is a less than 4 by 4 tvachim place, so a tefach is about 8 inches, just to 8 centimeters, just to get this correct. So if something is not 32 centimeters by 32 centimeters, in an area like that, then no one really places things there because it's not a stable place to put something. It's too small. So therefore, it cannot be considered rested, and it cannot be considered leaving a state of rest when it's on such a small surface. That is the idea that Toshefot brings, which is an important idea as we go through the sugya, and we'll see what happened. So now, your hands are not a 4x4 tvachim, not 32 centimeters, 30 centimeters. So how is it that if I place it in the hand, it's considered hanacha, and if I remove it from the hand, it's considered an akira? It's supposed to be a 4x4 tefach area. So Amar Rabba says, I'll tell you, hi, Mani, our Mishnah, the time of our Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is Amar Lai, Be'inam mekom arba al arba. He holds you don't need 4x4. You're right. There's a premise, there's a misorah, but he doesn't hold you need it. The Tanan, because we had a case. Hazorek mishut yachid. L'reshut yachid u'reshut rabim be'emsa. Rabbi Akiva mechayev. Rabbi Akiva says he's mechayev hatat. Chachamim potrim. Chachamim say he's potter of lost. Right? What's the case? You have Reshut Yachid 1, Reshut Yachid 2, and in the middle you have Reshut Rabim. And the guy is throwing, he's Zorek. He's throwing from one Reshut Yachid to the other Reshut Yachid. Now, Reshut Yachid and Reshut Yachid really is not a problem. The Chachamim said between two people different Reshut Yachid, you need to make an Erev Chatzeres. You put a piece of bread there, whatever it is. Shituf Mo'avai, we talked about this in the past. But here, the guy is sending it through the Reshut Rabim. Now, if you bring a Reshut Yachid to Reshut Rabim, you're chayav d'oraita. So Rabbi Kiva says he's mechayev. The Chachamim say no. Why not? Rabbi Kiva says Amrinan keluta kemi shehuncha damya. But Rabbanan savrei lo amrinan keluta kemi shehuncha damya. It's the principle of keluta. What's the principle of keluta? Says Rabbi Kiva, and he holds by this. That if something is in the airspace of a domain, then it's as if it is resting there. So says Rabbi Akiva, since this item is going through the airspace of a Reshut Harabim, since the item is going through an airspace of the Reshut Harabim, it's considered as if it's resting in the Reshut Harabim. And that's why he is Mechli. But Rabbanon, they all know, just because it's flying through the airspace doesn't mean it is resting there. So the Gemara says, is this to say, the Pshit Le Rabba, the Rabba knows exactly Rabbi Kiva's Shita, that he's able to say what Rabbi Kiva holds. In the case of Kiluta, that it's considered as if it's resting. And we're talking about within 10 Tvachim. So a very important concept. The airspace is only 10 Tvachim high, meaning 80 centimeters. From the ground, 80 centimeters up is considered Shtrabim. Above that point, it's considered a Makom Patur, a exempt area where you're allowed to carry from Shtrabim to Makom Patur, and the Makom Patur to Shtrabim, or Makom Patur to the Makom Patur, you're allowed to walk there. Right? So Uvtay Chasara. And Pligi, this is where they're arguing. Is this really what Rabba didn't know? The Voira, Rabba asked the question. Are they arguing when it's less than 10 tvachim from the ground and there's something in the airspace of 80 centimeters up from the ground? This is what they're arguing. The Rekiva Savar Kaluta Kamishun Chadamya. That's something in the airspace considered as if it's resting. But the Rabbanan say no, because it's an airspace doesn't mean it's resting there. But if above 10 tvachim, everyone says Divrei Hakol Potter. Everyone says it is Potter. And everyone holds you don't learn handing over, throwing from handing over. What's the story of handing over? So in the times of the Mishkan, when they would disassemble the Mishkan, they would put the walls of the Mishkan on one wagon, a wagon that had a 4x4 space with walls up on the side, so it made of Yachid, and it would transfer to another wagon that also had walls and a 4x4 area, so it was considered another Reshut Yachid, and they moved it over a Reshut Rabim. There was airspace in the middle of Reshut Rabim, and it was asur to hand it over that way, to hand it over a Reshut Rabim. So, do you learn throwing, which is going from Reshut Yachid over Reshut Rabim into Reshut Yachid? Do you learn it from Moshe or not? So, no, everyone says it's above 10. You're You don't learn throwing from handing over. And throwing, you're allowed to do it. They disagree. Or Dilma, maybe the argument is this way. Above 10, they're arguing. Well, please. The Rekiva started up arguing Moshe. Rekiva says, you do learn throwing from handing over. But Rabbanan say, Moshe. But Rabbanan say, no, you don't learn it from handing over. When it comes to the bottom 10, my tama, Amrina Kaluta Kimisha Hun Chadamya. So everybody holds Kaluta is considered as if it's resting in that domain, if it's in that airspace. So we don't know Rabbi Akiva Shita. And where's the like Kasha? No, Bata the Iboy Hadar Pshita. Like you're right, he didn't know it first, but then he figured it out. So Rabbi Akiva Kaluta Kimisha Hun Chadamya. Rabbi Akiva held that in its domain it's considered resting. The Chachamim said no, and above 10, nobody argued. The Gemara says, "V'dilma hanachu hu delay baya." Akira baya. Maybe according to Rabbi Akiva, something is considered resting when it's in the airspace of its domain. True, but if it's in the airspace, right? Maybe, but Akira maybe, but lifting up maybe requires it to actually be on something. Meaning, you can say hanacha is in the airspace of a Rishut Rabim, but you cannot say if something's in the airspace of some area, it's considered as if it's resting and now I'm picking it up. You can't do that. For the Akira, you don't have that. You have that for the Hanacha. The Luta, Kimisha Hun Chadamya, but not Akira. So, and our Mishnah goes both ways. If I pick it up from the hand or I put it down in the hand, I'm doing either Akira or Hanacha. So both ways work. According to Mekiva's topic, it's only about Hanacha and not Akira. Elam Rabbi Yosef. Oh, Mani, who is this? Rebbe. Actually, is a case of Rebbe. Which Rebbe? Hi, Rebbe. Which Rebbe? He named a Rebbe. Maybe this is the case of Rebbe. The Tanya is Tony Brayso. Zorok benach agave zis kol shehu. Rebbe Mechayim chamim petuni. Right? Potter also. So a guy is throwing something in the Rabim, and it lands on a small protrusion 4 amos away. So you're not allowed to carry something, throw something 4 amos in the Rabim. But it lands on something small. So Rav Steinsaltz brings him the Gaonim. The case would be Lamashal, where sometimes you have the windows of apartment buildings, right? You have the outside of the window. There's like bricks underneath or like a cement shelf coming out of the window into the Rishut Rabim. So basically, Zarak. So I threw it 4 amos, and it fell on this shelf. And it's a less than 4x4 space. Rebbe says, no, you're still mechayem, chachamim, poturim. So you see, you don't need a 4x4 area. Even smaller is good. So it's like Rebbe. Where he says, no, that specific case is something else. Otam kediv'inan lemimar lekaman kedabayem. Achab ilan ha'omeh b'shut yachid. V'nafon noter l'slamim. V'zarak v'nachon nafon. The case is, there is a tree in the Reshut Yachid, but its branches lead out to the Reshut Rabim. A guy's throwing something, and it lands on the tree branch in the Reshut Rabim. And the tree branch is less than 4x4. But says Rebbe, we're going to say the branch is connected to the trunk. And the trunk is in the Reshut Yachid, and the trunk has a 4x4 space. Therefore, we're going to say it fell on a 4x4. Whether it's considered Reshut Yachid or Reshut Rabim, because the trunk is in the Reshut Rabim, Reshut Yachid is a question the Rishonim argue on, so we won't get in. But the logic is that even though it fell on the branch, which is a small area, it's not a 4x4. We have to look at the trunk and say it is a 4x4. The Rebbe Savar Minan Shadenu 4 Batarikaro, but Rabbanan Savre, Law Minan Shadenu 4 Batarikaro. But the Chachamim say, no, it fell on the branch, it fell on the branch. So here you see that, and it's less than 4x4. So here you see, according to Rebbe, the case is a specific case. It is still 4x4 there. It's just the branch is connected to the trunk. So if it has to be a case of Rebbe, El Rebbe. This is the case of Rebbe. The Tanya. This is an opposite case. Zorek min Reshut Rabim, Reshut Rabim, or Reshut Yachid be'imta. The guy was throwing from one Reshut Rabim to another Reshut Rabim, but it went through. It was Reshut Yachid in the middle. So you can picture it's going through the house. The guy's throwing the ball from one Reshut Rabim, and he goes through the window, out the other window, and goes into the Reshut Rabim. Okay? Rebbe Mirchayev. Rebbe says, Hayev Rabim, Potrin Potter V'Loser. Vari Yehuda Omar Shmuel. Mechayev HaRebbe Shitayim. Rebbe says you have to bring two korbanot, two korban chadas. Ahad mishum motzah, v'ahad mishum machnasa. Alma lo boya akira v'lo enochal gavimokom arba al arba. Look what's happening. The guy threw the ball, right? It's going into the house. The Rebbe says, that's it. It's already mechuyev chatat for hachnasa, going from the Rabim to Reshut Hayachid. Zakir and Hanoch. And then as it continues to travel through the house and then out, that's a hotzah, and it's an akir and an hanoch to bring to chatat. So what do you see? It can be considered as if it's a 4x4, even though it's flying in the air. So even you don't have a 4x4 space, you don't need a 4x4 place. You don't need it. So that's like our hand, the case of our hand in the Mishnah. The Gemara says, it's marala, but we explained that case. Rabbi Shmuel explained both of them explained. Lo mechayev Rabbi elo b'reshut hayachid mikora. Da'amrinan beitza keman demalya damya. Avash eno mikora lo. This case is a specific case. The case of where I went through the house, like the case I gave you, where there is a roof. Okay, now that something is considered roofed over, it's considered as if it is full. Halachically, it's considered if it's full. Now, if a ball goes into a full place, what will happen to it? It's going to stop. So, since legally it's considered full, the ball went in, it's considered as it stopped because it's legally full. And then, even though it came out the window, so it means it stopped, and then it got up again, and it went out. So you did two. You did a hotza'ah, you did achnasa, and a hotza'ah, a kir v'anacha times two. And therefore, you bring two korbanot. But if it was a reshut hayachid, like my backyard where there is no roof, then no, we would not say that. We would not say chayav tu chatat. So maybe our case is also a case of a mikora. Our Mishnah is all about that the Baal Bayit in his house that's roof. The onion is in a roof, reshut rabim, and therefore everything considered full, and therefore it's considered as if it's at rest, and therefore it has nothing to do with the yacht. It has to do with the fact that it's considered legally at rest, and if you move it, you're doing that here and the anacha. Okay? That's all good in Reshut Yachid, that's covered. But if you're moving things in Reshut Rabim that is covered, who said it is considered that you're carrying? We're going to see a covered Reshut Rabim is not a Reshut Rabim, it's a carmelit. Amar Shmuel bar Yehuda, Amar Abba, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav, Hamaver Chefetz Arba Amot Reshut Rabim Mikora Patur Aval Asur, L'fnei Lefi She'eno Domeh L'dignei Midbar, because it's not similar to the way of the Midbar, which was open. So if you're carrying in a covered area on Reshut Rabim, that is a carmelit issue, and that's not an issue. What's it called? Of this, so the case cannot be that, right? Because the whole thing is about also to move from Shmichin. Here it would not be also to move it. And then Rav Zera says, I'll tell you who the case is. And the end of the day, you know what it is? It is Acherim. It is a case according to the Acherim. Acherim Oimrim. The others say, this is a case. Amad bimkomo v'kiba hayab. Person threw a ball. And so say Johnny's throwing the ball. And I'm the one standing to catch it. If I'm just holding my hand out, right, and the ball falls into it, then Johnny has to bring a hatat. But if I went to catch the ball, then I went to catch it, if I move to get it, patur, then Johnny has to bring a hatat because I did the hanacha by catching it. I did the hanacha. But if I'm standing, then he did the hanacha. So the guy's standing in place and he caught it. And he's catching it in his hand, and his hand is less than 4 tvachim, and you don't have 4 tvachim here. And yet we said he did the hanacha. So what do we see? You don't need 4 tvachim. That's our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is just like this. The word says no, but Haika akira behinan. Maybe for placement you don't need. It's maybe for placement is considered a hanocha, but maybe akira requires it to be on a 4x4. We don't see that from here. Well, hanocha nami. Even regarding placing down, maybe it's not really talking about when it's less than 4x4. Dilma the fashid kafe vikibula, economy hanocha. Maybe this case is Amma Vikibel, he was standing and he got it, was when he took his cloak, right? And he stuck it out to make like a surface for the ball to fall into, whatever it's falling into. So that area does have a 4x4, right? So it is considered a hanocha. So the achem doesn't work. So Rabbi Abba, I'll tell you what it is. The case is matniton kegoin she'akar mitraskal v'heniach al gabe tarskal. Economy hanocha. And you know what we're talking about? We're dealing with the whole case is dealing about baskets. The mission is dealing about baskets. Baskets have a 4x4. They have a side wall, and it has a 4x4. Therefore, considered lifting. It's considered placing. The Gemara says, well, how could you say the whole case is about basket? The Mishnah said yad, said hands. Where are you getting baskets from? The Gemara says, okay. Today, Taskal should be change it into a basket that's in his hand. The Gemara says, okay, let's look at these baskets. Yeah, when the basket is Reshut Yachid, the basket is also Reshut Yachid. And Taskal should be Rabim. But if a basket's in the Reshut Rabim, it's not anymore Reshut Rabim. Reshut Yachid, it's also considered a Reshut Yachid. It's 4x4. It's 10 tvachim off the ground. And we'll see how the Gemara explains it should be its own Reshut Yachid. Now, if it's a Reshut Yachid, it's the Reshut Yachid to Reshut Yachid, from the private house to the basket. And the house to the basket is not an Issa D'Oraisa. Leimon Deloy Kavis Yehuda. The Tanya. Kavis Yehuda Omer. Na'at Kanev Reshut Rabim. If a person stuck a pole in the ground, in the public domain, Uvrashot Tarsakal. And the top of the basket was, on the top of the pole, he put a basket for tvachim wide. Zorak v'nachal gabav, and he threw an object from Reshut Rabim into it. Hayav. Why? He went from a public to a private domain. Rabbi Yossi considered a basket held above a public domain to be a private domain. Right? The law is that the top surface of a pillar, 10 tvachim high and 4 tvachim wide, is a private domain. Our basket as well, while it rests on a pole, whose dimensions are not this wide, it's seen as having such dimensions below. Because we have a tradition, good achit smihita, extend the wall downward. We view the basket's walls as extending down to the ground so that they encompass an area of 4 tvachim wide that is 10 tvachim high. And our Mishnah can't go like Rabbi Yehuda. Because if it went like Rabbi Yehuda, Pasha Ba'abayit et yado lachutz, but Atan latoch yado shel ani, and it's putting into the hand of ani, which is really the basket. Amay chayab, Reshut Yachid. It went from one Reshut Yachid to Reshut Yachid. And it is, that's not Issa D'Oraisa at all. So the Gemara says, no, maybe the case is the field of Yehuda. Maybe it depends on the case. Maybe it depends on the case. If the basket's above 10, so then we say it's 10, you extend the walls, and it's a private domain. But if it is below 10, then it's considered part of the Reshut Rabim. Maybe that's the case of the Mishnah. Gemara says the whole case makes no sense. At the end of the day, the Mishnah doesn't say anything about a basket in his hand. It just says hand. So don't throw the basket case in here. And I'll tell you what case it is. The guy is accepting it, right? 3 tvachim from the ground. Okay? He's accepting it in his hand, 3 tvachim from the ground. Anything that's within 3 tvachim from the ground is considered as if it's on the ground. So if he accepts the 3 tvachim on the ground, then you have a 4x4, right? The ground has a 4x4 area. So it's considered as he has the 4 tvachim. Like Gemara says, it says he is standing. The Mishnah says he's standing. So nobody's 3 tvachim high from the floor, right? But 24 centimeters when he's standing. The Gemara says, no, b'shaycha, he's bent over. He's standing bent over. People are saying, if you want to say, beguma. It's he's standing in a pit, and his hands are over the 3 tvachim from the ground. People are saying, what do you want to say better? Tell you what the case is about. Binanas, talking about a midget whose hand is below 3 tefachim from the ground, even while he is standing. So, Amar Rabba says, Ikapel Tana Lashmina Kohani. Where the Tana teach such cases, 2 that are 4, 2 that are 4, 8, 12, 16 cases, all about a midget, right? All about someone who's bent over. These are all very, very far-fetched cases. So what is the reason? A hand, you could consider Akira and Hanacha. It comes out. Elam Rabba. Yado Shel Adam Chashuv Aloi Ka'arba Al Arba. A person's hand is considered a 4x4 area. It gets a status of an Arba Al Arba. Even though it's not Arba Al Arba, it gets a status as Arba Al Arba. Now, if you go back to the logic of Tosfot, it fits in very nicely. Tosfot said, the reason why I need a 4x4 place to be considered placed down or to remove from, because that is a safe area, the minimum safe area, in order to put something to rest. But now we're saying a hand is also considered at rest. Why? Because a hand is another safe area you can put something. The hand has fingers. It has an opposing thumb that can hold something in place. When you're able to hold something in place, then it's safe and secure there. And then therefore it's considered as if it's rested there, or one could consider Akira there as well. The hand of a person is considered a 4x4 tefachim area. So that is the answer that was given to this Shaka V'Tarya. So B'ezrat Hashem, just a scheduling note. Let's put this off record.